So we're coming to the tail end of the Skyline. Right now, I have just some primer that's set up on the roof. I'm gonna need to sand that out. Same thing as we did on the trunk, where I just had to fix a little rust spot and make sure that that's not gonna come back. And then we're gonna wrap that in black across the center of the roof. So for today, that's one of the main goals. Other is going to be finishing up these back seats, getting these things extracted. They're pretty nasty. So I'll do these back seats, finish up that headliner, and then finally be able to get into the motor. The motor's gonna be super basic stuff. So pull the spark plugs out, make sure they're not all fouled up, swap them if they need to be swapped. Hopefully everything's good with the coil packs. As far as it goes for fluids, stuff like that, just change all the basic fluids. So yeah, let's get to it. Let me show you these seats. These back seats look about as bad as the front seats were. So this little piece of color here is what they should be looking like. Everything else is all stained up. It gets worse in certain spots. That goes across through all of it. Some of this is just fade from the sun and things like that. So these lighter territories probably aren't really gonna look a whole lot cleaner. They're just so sun faded, but they'll be looking a lot better. And then we'll take a peek at that headliner. That headliner I'll probably do before we get these seats put in the back. I'm taking a peek at this headliner. So the entire headliner is discolored. Just some areas are way worse than others, like that. That's like oil and dirt and gross stuff that's probably just never been cleaned. But I think this is gonna be like light gray when all is said and done. Right now, with dark gray and black. And last, I'll do just some quick passes on the door inserts. These have some discoloration as well. Similarly, corners are good. That could also be a bit of sun fade. But yeah, a little bit dirty there. And a standard process for me, I'm going to saturate everything first with heavy artillery, which is the cleaner I use. So now I'm gonna come at this with some steam. And then right behind the steam, I'll be hitting it with the drill brush. You can see that color difference. Look at that line. It's crazy. We'll keep getting at it. Now there was this really dark stain right here. It hasn't come fully out, so I'm gonna make another pass at this. I'm just gonna suck out some of the nasty fluid that's in there right now, and then we'll get a little bit more chemical on there, let it sit for a little bit with that cleaner, and then we'll finish up with the rest of the seats. And do it all over again. All right, now we're coming over into this headliner. So no steam on this one. We're just gonna get some of that cleaning solution on there. See how fast this pulls. And huge improvement. No more black stains. This fabric's gonna be interesting. A little bit's holding a tiny bit of water, but some of it's just because it's loose fabric. So as you start to pull that with that extractor, it's wanting to make some lines. So I'll come back out here, probably just like a soft cloth, wipe it down and level that stuff back out. Here's a good depiction of the cleaned area versus the not cleaned area. Again, I knew that this was gonna be way darker. That's typically what happens. That, you know, smoker car, so there's all kinds of gross coloring that has attached itself to that fabric over time, but it's gonna be nice and light across the entirety of it as we continue here. So now that I have the interior and the seats all cleaned, I'm gonna give them a little bit of time to dry out a little more. That extractor doesn't get absolutely everything. In the meantime, we'll sand down this little piece of body filler we got up here, and then we'll wet sand this territory, get it all set for vinyl. Oh, it helps if I plug this thing in. Now we're plugged in. Back in action. Feeling good there. Wipe this down, get some wet sand, and lay down some vinyl. So we're prepped up on this now. Never mind on the wet sand. This paint's a little too gone up top for me to really want to get into it like that. I don't want to mess with the integrity of what's there. That you start eating away at the clear in the paint that's there, I might create a bigger problem for myself than I really want to deal with. So just like last time, we're going to get all of our cut tape laid out first before we smack down that piece of vinyl. Where are my scissors? So I'm gonna go a little bit further out with the cut tape on at least the front and the back. These side cut ones, I'm gonna go right on the line that I want. So this is gonna be the first one that I cut through. And this is just following that seam line across the roof. But then on the back and on the front, I need a little bit more material because it's gonna roll over. This roof kind of kicks down a little bit into where the glass is. So I definitely want to give myself enough material to tuck it down after. And I'll show you in a bit here what I'm talking about. And so you can see what I'm talking about here with this little lip that comes down. So when I pull my vinyl, it's gonna pull out kind of straight when there's tension. I can start to lay this down, but I wanna be able to run my cut closer to here, like where this rubber gasket is across the glass, so that I can then tuck that down and I don't have to try to work a blade inside there and risk jeopardizing, you know, the rest of the paint and everything else that's underneath it, because I definitely don't want to cut that with a blade. And so what I've done here is just come across all the way on that gasket And that should give me enough. Now on this front side, I'm gonna go a little bit different, which is also trimming just along the top of this gasket, just enough so I can get a tiny bit of tuck on the front of that there. To lock down, give myself some excess for a cut. Now we'll measure out our piece. All right, so got this pretty much set in place. I'm gonna go ahead and tack down one side. This would be way easier with another person, but I never have one of those. Go ahead and set this back here. And then this little film that's on top, the little protective film, I'll pull off in a second too. I just don't know, it's getting a little bit windy out. I don't know if it's gonna blow this thing away. And I definitely don't want it scraping up or getting this thing all filthy. So I just gotta get this started, tucked under. Then I'll pull it from the other side, but at least I'll have this corner down. There we go. So I remember the first time I did a roof, it was a clamshell roof on a BRZ, and man, did I mess that thing up. It took the longest time to try to figure out how to get that clamshell part. And it was just an experience, you know, I'd never messed with any vinyl wrap before and I wanted to give it a go. So in the end, it turned out okay. Definitely could have been worse. So my apologies, but my camera died and I didn't notice until right now when I went to move it. So I've got the other side pretty well done. I'm just gonna heat up this little section, stretch it out over the front, and then start running my cut. And so this is some vinyl that I've had sitting for a while. Older kind of vinyl, it works well. But the air release system on it, it is nothing like how the air release works on new vinyl. And man, do you take that for granted. Like the newer vinyl stuff or the PPF colored wrap stuff has such a good release system that you can make more errors or be at least a little more careless in some spaces and it'll release the air just as you start to put some pressure on it. And this does not do that. But still, you know, keep you humble in what you do with everything, you know. I'd rather be, you know, a little bit more meticulous anyway, and this makes sure that I have to be. I'm just gonna get myself a little blade so I can start my cut for where that cut tape is. And then hopefully it's still where it's supposed to be. So unfortunately, sometimes with this cut tape, when you're manipulating the vinyl, it can lift up as well. So I'm hoping that didn't happen. But what I'm doing here is just cutting out a little section that's going to allow me to get this tape to start. I'm just gonna hold it down there. Get myself over to that other side. Now I'm gonna start coming over everything with some heat. I'm just looking to seal that down. And then in the back here, I'm just gonna get some heat and I'm just gonna push through with this little vinyl squeegee. Got the last little part that I can reach there. And there you have it. So black roof, got that all tucked back. That just comes through the center here, down through the back there. And last little view before we call it here. These cleaned up seats. Man, that sun sucks. Let's go on the other side. Try this again. There we go. These things are looking good. Headliner all nice and pretty. Doors all nice and pretty. We got a bunch of little residue and stuff from the spray on there that I'll have to clean up again, but that just comes with the territory. So next on the list of things to do is get this spoiler on. So what I'm gonna go ahead and do now is just pop this trunk open where I have the vinyl covering the holes. We're just gonna cut those little sections out. We'll see if we can do it from the bottom. Looks like it'd be easier to do from the top. So we're gonna cut these little holes out from the top. That way we have a place for our spoiler posts to go through. And then on the spoiler itself, I already have it set up with double-sided tape, which is not like how it was before. This tape now is just going to be in the spaces where we're concerned about any kind of water or anything like that getting through. There's plenty of mounting support through the spoiler studs and through the little plastic retainer that's on there, that little clip. So we don't need a whole bunch of double-sided tape to hold this on any better. We just want to make sure that there's no water getting inside here if it rains. Then on the spoiler here, you'll see where I set that double-sided tape down, just where the bolts are going to be. I'll do the same thing around this little plastic clip, and then all of this is that factory gasket little system that, in theory, should be blocking out the rest of that water from coming in, but blocking off these holes will do plenty. I have the spoiler all ready to set down. Just get those things lined up. All right, so little plastic clips are through, we'll just get those nuts, screw those nuts back in there. All right, so I got that longer extension on here. I'm just gonna start these off by hand. Once I feel that get pretty snugged up by hand, I'll come back and torque them down. And now that I have that spoiler mounted, we are gonna throw some wrap on here to match the lines of the trunk. So this wrap's gonna come through here, cut on the spoiler the same way. All right, and that thing's all finished up. But yep, we just had to pop in that third brake light. I'm gonna tint that. I'm gonna come over here, tint these things, clean up these tires, give this thing one last polish. Give you a little top view there. That thing's looking pretty slick. I really like it. You know, I haven't really seen too many Skylines that have like a black roof or, you know, trunk or anything like that, really accent colors. They're usually all pretty like solid single colors, but I really like the two-tone look on it. You know, it's not for everyone, that's for sure, but I guess it's for me. But that'll do it for this one. So like, comment, subscribe, you know, all that good stuff. And then when we come back to you, this thing should be looking all nice and pretty. I'm gonna do the buff off camera. You've seen me do that enough times. Same process, it's just gonna be that polish coat, but she should be looking a lot shinier the next time we come on here and finally get into the motor. And until then, we'll see ya.